Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 11 of the You've Probably Never Heard of Me podcast, which is a podcast dedicated to shining a light on underground artists, creators, and changemakers that deserve your attention. I am Ryan Allen, a Detroit-based musician. I've spent over 2 decades playing in bands like Thunderbirds Are Now, Extra Arms, Big Life, and Speed Circuit, and I've had the pleasure of meeting some of the most talented people that you just might not know about yet. So that's what I'm here to fix. My guest today, I'm very excited, is Jeremy Porter, who is a fixture of the Detroit punk and rock scene, and also, honestly, one of the hardest working musicians that I know. After moving downstate from Marquette, Michigan, where he started his first punk band, The Regulars, Jeremy came down to Ypsilanti and then eventually the Detroit area in the late 80s, began fronting some ragtag punk and power pop inspired outfits like Chutes and Ladders, Fidyrich, and the Off Ramps, all paying homage to the rough and tumble sound of the Replacements, Uncle Tupelo, and Soul Asylum. So if you're a fan of this podcast, you're probably a fan of those bands. Since 2011, Jeremy has released 5 full-length singles and compilation tracks with his band, the Tucos, as well as a handful of solo releases, all injected with heart, passion, and the kind of wisdom only a road dog like Jeremy can produce. Indeed, Jeremy is almost always on tour. He documents his experiences via his 10 plus years running road blog. And he's even released a coffee table book / photo memoir called Rock and Roll Restrooms, which, as you probably could guess, catalogs the one-of-a-kind shitters you can only find in the belly of America's rock and roll dive bars. Jeremy Porter and the Tucos just dropped their new album, Sell Their Souls, which is another collection of punky, swaggy bangers that shows off a diverse band coming into their own. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show my friend Jeremy Porter. Hi, Jeremy.
That was exhausting.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Did you leave friendly foes out of your intro there?
Not on purpose. You know, you can't list them all. You can't.
Right.
I mean, you can. I can do whatever I want. But
I think that's where we met. I think was when you were in Friendly Foes, but it might have been before that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I was doing more like post-punk stuff with Thunderbirds and then kind of like went back to my roots and started writing power pop, and then all of a sudden made a bunch of friends that were doing the same, yourself included, Nick Pioneer, a lot of great people. But I want to start at the start.
Yeah, man.
You grew up in Alpena as well as Marquette.
You were just in Alpena, 70s.
Right? I was just in Alpena. Strange but beautiful place.
It's but I'm Rust Belt, been one of those Rust Belt cities that's been hit. You know.
I know. Still, I think there's a lot to do and a lot to find in that town, but there's a lot of kind of the ghost of what maybe once was kind of lingering there. But
for sure.
Growing up there in Alpena and then moving to Marquette, I can't obviously imagine that it was like the bastion of culture back then. So I'm curious how you got into music and how you kind of stumbled upon punk rock and counterculture as like a kid and a young adult.
Yeah, I mean, that move was pretty pivotal. In Alpena, it's a really small town. I basically I grew up on my parents' record collection, which was like Beatles, Dylan, Beach Boys, later on Fleetwood Mac, stuff like that. And then like a lot of kids, I discovered Kiss in the late 70s, and that was like life changing for me. And from there it was Cheap Trick and the Knack. So that kind of started the transition a little bit. And then I moved, I also started getting into the Who around that time because I saw their final show from 1982.
Right.
That was on HBO. They showed it. And I was pretty young, so they weren't really on my radar very much. And I was just like, just watching Pete play the guitar was something I really gravitated towards. And then, and then we moved to Marquette. My dad got a job up in Marquette, and we moved up there. And I mean, by Alpena standards, Marquette was huge. Right. I mean, they had
MTV
there. Yeah, they had MTV. I couldn't believe it. And stuff like they had they had a bar where bands played. They had like 2 record stores, you know. So
How old were you when you were in Marquette?
probably 14 when I
Okay,
moved up
so
there.
like
13,
the
14.
like perfect age to
Yeah.
like kind of
Sophomore
like, you know,
sophomore year in high school. Yeah.
right.
Um
Okay, cool.
like just getting into girls and
Hmm.
really resentful about being taken away from all that, you know.
Right.
Um but then I was, by this point I was very into metal, you know, like
Yeah.
those first 2 Motley Crue records, Scorpions, Judas Priest, like Screaming for Vengeance, Iron Maiden, like I was huge into that stuff.
Hmm.
And then
Were
which
you
was
into like
also
comic? Were you into comic books or anything like that as a
very
kid?
little. No, I had
Okay.
friends who were, but very little. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder because sometimes like I feel like the connection between that like metal kind of world where like they kind of feel like superheroes. Obviously, Kiss is like the best example. Like
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
crossover there, so I'm always curious
Yeah.
like what kind of like was before, you know, maybe that like fed you in, but it sounds like more like just like this like desire for like culture and desire for like, you know, your bands and your things and maybe like a little bit of a separation from what your parents were
Yeah.
listening
And
to at the time. I would assume.
there's that rebellion aspect of it, but it was
Yeah.
just also like it was just there was an unsafe element to it, you know,
Right. Sure.
which I gravitated towards. And you know, like the Who and the Beach Boys and these band, like, you know, it's just they're like godlike, like you're never going to achieve that. But then you hear like, you know, like metal was so much more inclusive than that, you know.
Yeah.
And then a friend of a friend and I got together and watched Quadrophenia one afternoon,
Hmm.
and we both
Cool.
loved the Who, and we ended up and then we formed the Regulars like the next
Right.
day.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
he was into punk rock, and where I came from, that was not cool, you know. Like
Okay.
when I was in Alpena and the Clash were on Saturday Night Live. I mean, there were some fairly offensive canceled terms that people were throwing around at school on Monday morning about that band, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
And so I kind of like I grew up like hating that stuff without even knowing anything about it. And then
Hmm.
he made me a mixtape of the Clash and the Dead Kennedys, and I'm just like, too drunk to fuck. These guys have a song called Too Drunk.
Right. Right. Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah,
And I
which
loved
feels
it,
very
you know.
metal, you know. Like I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like there's definitely like a crossover there for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's
Um,
danger there too. You know, I mean, Dead
yeah.
Kennedys are arguably more dangerous than Motley Crue, maybe in a
Well,
different way. But
well,
yeah,
and that's kind of where I was going, because punk, especially at the time, was even more like extreme and more inclusive
hmm
than the metal stuff. You know,
right.
like I was never going to be Randy Rhoads. You know, I was trying,
Well, you
but I
could
was,
play it too,
you
right?
know,
Like where that's
well,
the
that's the
other.
thing. You know, like I could
Yeah,
play like Joe Strummer. You know, I
right,
couldn't play
right,
like Randy Rhoads, and I would,
right.
and it didn't look very good, like I was ever going to be able to. You know, like I didn't
Right,
have the discipline. I didn't, you know. But then it's like all of a sudden it's like, well, you know, I can play this Ramones riff, you know,
right, right.
and my buddy John Burke, who's still one of my best friends, and he's the one who kind of got me down that road. But his mom worked at School Kids in Ann Arbor in the early '80s and mid '80s, so he
Awesome
would,
store.
yeah, and
Totally like
he would come
iconic.
home from summer vacation with a stack of albums, and he's like,
Right. Okay.
you know, check out this band Husker Du, you know,
Hmm.
check out REM, check out the Nomads, check out whatever, Avengers, Naked Raygun, whatever it was at
Hmm.
the time. And that was the stuff that would end up on mixtapes that really got me down that road. And
And those are some of the bands that the regulars were covering, right? Like you
absolutely,
guys, when you
yeah.
started to play together with that band, you were doing that stuff, right? Which was kind of
Yep.
like the gateway into that world. Was that those songs were more sort of like simple in terms of like there wasn't a ton of shredding on it. It was a
They were
very like,
achievable.
you
Yeah, it
know,
was an
three
achievable
chords and the
thing. And
truth, right?
yeah.
Like, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So tell me about the regulars. Like, how did that kind of come together? You know, were you starting to play guitar at this time too?
Well, I
Did
started playing guitar in Alpena with, you know, looking to get into a metal band or something.
Mm-hmm.
But in Marquette, then I met John, and we watched Quadrophenia, and we got together and played for one night, and then we got the other two guys, Fritz and Tim, in, and I mean, John really had the culture because he had that Ann Arbor thing and his
Yeah.
mom, so he really, he was really the leader, and he's really the one who kind of really pushed the direction into some cool ways that, like, I certainly didn't have, like, I didn't
Do you
know
have siblings?
these who did he, or do I?
No. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger sister. Yep.
Okay, so you're the older sibling, and
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
didn't have the older sibling going like, "Here, check this out, check this out."
No.
These your friends ended up being the sort of
Yeah.
like gateway to that world.
And again, I
Got
had
it.
my parents with their Beatles and their
Right.
Stones
Sure.
and their,
Sure.
and I had my aunt who was like, you know, Bob Seger live bullet, and she had the Who
Okay.
songbook that I borrowed and still have, and I have not given back to her.
That's
So
awesome.
I did have that, but
Yeah.
so we just started, like, we just started playing, and we were terrible, but we would play a lot of parties.
Mm-hmm.
We did a couple gigs at the college. We had some friends who were in a band at Northern Michigan University who would sometimes, they liked us because we were like the other punk band in town, and
Right.
so we would just start doing. Then there was this non-alcoholic club opened up down this old forest road, and we kind of had a residency there for about a year where we played like
Wow. Okay.
once or twice.
Cool.
Yeah, but it was just like, we're like sophomores in high school or seniors in high school.
Yeah.
A couple high school dances, like big room type stuff. So yeah, and then
Cool.
we kind of started writing songs.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the guys moved away, then I moved away, and we've gotten back together 4 or 5 times since, for the random.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's a big deal because, everybody from then, like, that's Marquette is a weird place because everybody's still, really, like, that's a huge circle of friends. It's not it's not like everybody kind of drifts apart. Like, most of my best friends are still either in Marquette or from Marquette.
Yeah, I feel like when you have that kind of like small town experience, like when I went to Central, and Mount Pleasant is, for me, like moving from down here and going to school up there, it felt smaller. It felt.
Oh yeah.
And not only did it feel small. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
you kind of know, like, not only did it feel small, but it was hard to find your people. It's hard to find your tribe.
Yeah.
But when you did, like, I was literally just texting with my college roommate this morning. Like, we're working on like a song together. So
Yep.
like those bonds that you have where you, like, it's not like every person you run into on the street is like a cool person who's into cool music. Like, you really have to search for those people. It ends up bonding
up there
you
because it's so rural, and a lot of
exactly.
the farmers and all that go there. But
yeah,
you had the foolery though, right? Or were you?
Say that again?
Did you have the foolery when you were up there,
Mm-mm.
or what? Or had it turned into
Rebels?
It was gone.
It turned. Yeah, it's Rebel. It was Rebels.
Okay.
I believe it still is. So
because that foolery was legendary. I mean, Black Flag, Meat Puppets, Soul Asylum, totally. All those guys played the foolery.
Yeah. And we knew that. We knew that when we were like going to school there. But like at that point in time, it was kind of like shitty bar bands. Like it was not.
Yeah, I played there many times.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
I've been one of them.
Sure you have. Well, let's talk about kind of like, moving downstate. You moved to Ypsilanti. Eventually you ended up maybe more in the Detroit area. But, this was kind of in the late 80s, which I think coincides with like a really exciting time in music. I mean, you had punk, hardcore, college rock. You've got, Replacements, REM, Black Flag, Pixies, Sonic Youth. Like, all these bands are putting the records out around this time. And even that, the local scene was starting to like really coagulate and come together. So I'm kind of curious, like, what, it was like being young Jeremy at the time, kind of moving downstate, coming to Ypsi, coming to Detroit, starting to like find out about all these things. Like, was it a shock to you to kind of like relocate, or were you ready for that change?
I was totally ready for it because, I mean, we'd been like, in Marquette, we would get classic rock or metal concerts, but we would never get like, like Cheap Trick played there in the 80s. The Romantics played a couple times, but that was about it.
Yeah. I mean, for those who don't realize, Marquette is way the fuck up there
Yeah, it's like it's a solid 7 or 8 hour drive from
yeah,
here. Yeah,
yeah, it's like another
yeah,
state,
yeah. And
yeah,
but we would go to Milwaukee or Green Bay because those were
sure,
like 3-5 hours away, or sometimes
right,
Detroit. Like, we would go see like Husker Du in Milwaukee, or my first punk concert was the Dead Kennedys in Green Bay
awesome,
in 1985. I was just a kid, and so I had I had been to a bunch of shows,
hmm
and I knew I wanted to write songs, and I knew I wanted to be in a real band, and I knew that was not going to happen in Marquette,
right,
and I just had an opportunity to get in-state tuition and go to go to college down at Eastern Michigan University, which for me was just kind of an excuse to get downstate and have my parents help, you know,
yeah, right,
because they're like, look, you can do whatever you want, but if you want our help, you got to go to school,
right, right,
which was good on their part. And yeah, so I moved down in September of '88. So I went to Northern for 1 year after high school. I went to
okay,
Northern Michigan, moved down sophomore year in college. Um, did not find like-minded musicians until that winter.
hmm
Was partying very hard,
hmm
putting
not much else to do in Ypsilanti, right?
yeah,
So,
I mean, and I was still pretty young, and in Marquette, in Marquette, we partied really hard, and
hmm
so I was in that mode, to the point where it was like, you know, it, yeah, it was just, it was pretty heavy. And,
can fuel some good songs though, right?
yeah, it was good. There were good times, but, I finally met the guys who were just forming Chutes and Ladders like
Right.
that winter. And we kind of hit it off, and we did that band for about 2.5 years. And, that was really cool because the regulars is like 95% covers. You know what
hmm
I mean? Like, it was all,
hmm
we were just kids. It was all covers.
Sure.
But I had been writing songs, and then when Chutes and Ladders got together, and I joined up with those guys, it was 90% original. So I
Right.
was writing songs and starting to really, I wouldn't say get good at it, but really work at it. And
Yeah. And I don't want to be reductive in any way, shape, or form. Like, I mean, we could probably spend an hour talking about each one of your bands, quite
yeah, yeah,
frankly.
yeah,
So don't feel like I'm trying to like condense things in a disrespectful way, but I do want to
all
talk
good.
about some of those early bands,
Yeah,
Chutes and Ladders, Slug Bug, the Off Ramps, even Fidyrich, which was, a little bit later, and I think was
yep,
probably the band that you were in when I met you. But
I believe.
um, they all sort of seem like kind of an extension of the one before it in a way to me, anyways, where sort of each band like realizes what you do a little bit more clearly kind of each band on from the next one. and
Yeah,
and I'm curious if like
that's very
if
true.
that makes
Yeah.
sense, and I just kind of want to hear your take on the trajectory of these bands, because they do tell a story to me of kind of your evolution as a songwriter.
Yeah. Well, that's insightful. Thank you for that.
hmm
But yeah, you're right. And it's like, it seems like every time I have a new band, there's one guy from the band before who's
yeah,
still with
right.
me,
I
and
know this
it,
experience quite well.
yeah, and it changed, and then the next time it's a different guy, but it's still a
Right.
guy from the previous band.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, it was, Shoots and Ladders. We were young, we were just figuring it out. I wasn't the best person, I wasn't the best bandmate. I learned a lot of what not to do, But
Sure.
we also had a couple really cool things happen to us, like we got to open for some cool bands,
Yeah,
and
I did want to ask you
yeah.
about the house party that you played with Green Day
Oh yeah,
in
yeah,
Grosse Pointe, which
yeah.
again, for people who aren't listening, or rather for people who are listening who don't really know like Michigan cities, which I assume most people listening to this are from Michigan and know me. But
Sure.
anyways, if you don't, Grosse Pointe has always kind of been, it borders Detroit, and it's this kind of like higher, like, more affluent neighborhood or whatever.
I got to stop
So
you though,
to
Ryan, because it was gross eel.
Oh, Grozil. Okay, well then
Grozil,
even
yeah.
even weirder. Okay,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
let's go back. Forget everything I said. Grozil is an island in the middle of the Detroit River, basically, where apparently
Downriver,
Jeremy's
yeah.
band Chutes and Ladders played with Green Day in a
That's
very
true.
early stage of their career. So I do want to hear about that because
Yes.
I had a question about like where you'd like to play and stuff, but like I really am curious about this story.
Um, so in Chutes and Ladders was our bass player was Brad Hales, who you may or may not know,
Yep, of
but he
course.
you know he owns People's Records
Mm-hmm.
downtown, and um, he was in Easy Action for a minute, and he's
Yep.
got really good guy. I still call him a kid. I haven't seen him in about 20 years. I know he's not a kid, but
I
he
saw him a couple weeks ago at
yeah
People's. Actually, he
yeah.
was there. Yeah.
I mean he was like 15 at the time. He was like
Okay,
our
so
he
he
was
was
our
your Tommy.
totally yeah,
Yeah.
and he was like sneaking into bars and stuff, and
Right.
but he and a buddy of his, this guy Jason, Jason lived in Grosse Ile, and somehow this was obviously way before the internet, but they were in touch with like the Lookout Records crew out in California,
Yep.
and Larry Livermore and those guys, and Green Day was on tour, and we were into that first Green Day record, that
Mm-hmm.
39 Smooth or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
like we really liked
Which
it.
they
Go
were
ahead.
coming from Husker Du and like replacements as influences at that point too. So it definitely
Yeah,
like
yeah,
fit, right?
yeah. It was like yeah, it was a little more primitive than those bands, but it was very melodic.
Mm-hmm.
Descendants for sure were probably
Sure,
on
sure,
on their
hundred
on
percent.
their turntables. But so they had a night off like between like Kalamazoo and Toledo or Cleveland or something, and
Mm-hmm.
somehow these guys got a hold of the label. The label got a hold of the band. Do you want to play out this house party? I think it was a Monday night, and of course we were going to open, and that's how it came together. And they showed up, and I can't remember if they had the bookmobile yet. It might have been just before they had
Mm-hmm.
that
Okay.
bookmobile, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they showed up, and they were some of the most horrific smelling humans I'd ever come across in my life, and they actually opened for us.
Mm-hmm.
For the one reason is that we were pretty sure the cops were going to come,
Mm-hmm.
and we wanted to make sure they got a chance to play. So
Yeah. Cool.
they played. The cops came. They finished their set like with an acoustic kind of, and did a few more songs, and then we did a short like acoustic set after that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Wild man.
yeah, yeah, it was really
What?
wild, and yeah,
So
I
when
did
they
like.
hit,
There's other part like I was staying with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, up in Wixom, and
okay.
all of our gear was in my friend's Volkswagen van again, and he was gone, and I didn't have a key, so I had to smash the back window out of his Volkswagen van to get our gear into my little mini crappy Ford Escort station wagon to take it down river. Like it was just like
Yeah.
this whole
Nothing's easy.
comedy. No,
Nothing's easy. Yeah.
but I wasn't going to miss that show. Like I'm like,
Hell yeah.
like I knew even that was probably one of the first times we played with an out of town band.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't the
Was
first, but it
there
was up there. Yeah,
was there a lot of people there? Like, what was the
it was
attendance
a good
like?
crowd. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was like
cool.
we played on their back deck. Maybe I mean this was a long time ago, but maybe 30 people. Maybe
Sure.
30, 40 people, kids. Like again, like Brad was in high school at the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There was probably a lot of like juniors and seniors in high school, and
yeah.
yeah, it was
Cool.
awesome, man.
When they hit, were you like those fucking guys? Like they're,
No,
or were you like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense to me.
well, I don't, I don't know if anybody was prepared for Dookie, for how big that
Sure,
got.
sure. Yeah, right.
But like we were following their trajectory. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they played St. Andrews a few months later, and
Okay.
they thanked Grosse Ile and Kerplunk in the
Cool.
liner notes, and
Yeah.
they spelled it wrong, and so
EEL.
ISSLE or something like I don't remember, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was excited that they got that big, but I wasn't like excited at what they were doing or anything, because it was. I mean, it's not that different. Like
No, right.
they didn't really start to kind of mature until a couple records later, you know.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
still love them. I still think they're great. I mean,
I do too.
I don't
I do
love
too.
everything they've done, but
Same.
I love that American Idiot and the follow up to that, and a couple of the more I love that last one that they did. So yeah, I still like.
Yeah.
I'm still on their side. You know, I'll
Yeah,
defend
that guy
them.
writes great songs.
Yeah,
I don't think you can ever take that away from him,
but
no matter.
it's kind of fashionable to hate on them
Yeah.
sometimes, and
I don't buy into
you
that
know,
shit.
yeah, I
Well,
don't
this
either.
isn't a
I don't either.
yeah. This isn't a Green Day podcast, so we can move off them. One thing I wanted to ask you, you know, I think a lot of people associate you who are familiar with your music with Husker Du, Cheap Trick, you know, kind of that like rock kind of power pop, punky kind of thing. But I'm curious when and how country music came into your life,
Yeah,
and
it's
was it
pretty
something
easy.
that like your parents listened to? I mean, you already mentioned some of the things that they listened to, so I guess the answer is no there. But I'm curious, like, what drew you to it? What inspired you to incorporate it into your own songwriting? Tell
Yeah.
me about that.
Well, if there was one moment that did it, it would have been seeing Social Distortion at Blondie's
Okay.
in December of '88, and they did "I Walk the Line."
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple years later, they came out with that self-titled album and did the Ring of Fire song, which
Mm-hmm.
got huge.
Right.
But and I've always been like an unapologetic Social Distortion fan
Mm-hmm.
because I loved that they had guitar solos, which most punk bands didn't, and
Right.
I love his voice, and I just thought they always had like great melodies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when that came out, that Ring of Fire, then it was kind of like, you know, it's okay to like check this out. Like
Right.
I'm always like I've always discovered music by kind of taking the next step from what I heard before. So,
Sure.
oh
Same.
well, these guys are covering a Johnny Cash song. Well, maybe I should check out Johnny Cash, you
Sure.
know. And then
Yeah.
Columbia House, you get the Columbia Years box set for $9, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's like the Clash and Jimmy Cliff or something like that, where you're like, oh,
yeah,
that's a Jimmy Cliff song. You're
exactly,
like, okay,
yeah,
yeah,
or
yeah.
Sex Pistols and Eddie Cochran or whatever.
Right.
I mean,
Right. Yeah.
anything
There's a
like that.
million
Yeah,
examples. Yeah.
yeah, and so then it was Johnny Cash, and I mean, from there it was just like Dwight Yoakam, Waylon Jennings. Obviously Uncle Tupelo was huge,
Sure. Sure.
and then Uncle Tupelo, where well, that took me to Graham Parsons, right,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Okay.
Burritos, and
Birds.
I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
everything kind of comes back to Social Distortion covering Johnny Cash for me, you know, because
So is it?
I hated country music. It was like country music was like kind of moving from Alpena to Marquette with punk. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
these guys are, you know, whatever you want to call them. I'm not going to say it, but it was just like I didn't know. I was stupid. I was
Yeah.
stupid, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, and I just had
Well,
a very limited view.
some of the most punk rock dudes of all time. Well, not I shouldn't just say dudes. Punk rockers, regardless of gender, are country musicians, right? Like, who is
Oh
more
yeah,
punk than
yeah,
Dolly Parton? Honestly, like
right,
in
right.
a way, right?
Well, it's so
Or
funny.
Lucinda
I remember
Williams or whatever.
at that Blondie show, there was this guy there. I can't remember his name, but he had a skull necklace tattooed on his neck.
Okay.
And he took the microphone away from Mike Ness, and he's like, "None of you motherfuckers here are punk enough. None of you, you guys think you're punks and all this." And Mike Ness just kind of stood back, and the guy walked up, and Mike Ness goes, "We're going to do the most punk thing we've ever done. It's a Johnny Cash song." And they
Hell
did,
yeah. There you
and they
go.
did like, and it wasn't a punked up version of "I Walk the Line." It was like "I
Right.
Walk the Line" right after this guy had this tirade, and I'm just like, that's fucking punk rock.
Hell
Like
yeah.
that,
Yes,
doing
for
that at
sure.
Blondie's in 1988 to that crowd, like
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's, you know, and I know like I know like Social Distortion's a bit of a polarizing band, but it's
Sure.
for me that was huge seeing that. I was just like, that's so cool that he did that. Like that's
Yeah.
balls,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and I think that those are the types of experiences, like you said earlier, kind of gives you the permission, you know, to
Yeah.
try it yourself, to
Yep.
explore things that maybe, you know, whether it's friends or where you grew up or whatever, kind of like soured you, you know,
Yeah.
on without like having really like an understanding of what it truly is. You know, I think like a lot of music genres get sort of distilled down to like the basic kind of like components of it with, and a lot of people, because they don't have the patience, they don't really want to investigate, they're just like, okay, I know what that is, and I don't want to listen to
especially
that or
as you get old.
whatever.
Especially as you
Yeah.
get older, yeah, it's the
So,
blinders get bigger, and you're absolutely right about that.
but
But
yeah,
it's
the permission of like other artists that you're inspired by that kind of like decide to reach outside of their own comfort zones and their own little wheelhouses to incorporate influences, to me anyways. Like the Clash is like such a like easy example of this, but like you listen to those early Clash records and they're pretty much just guys bashing on guitars, right? But as they progress and you get to Sandinista, for example, like there's hip hop, there's so many different types of things, Motown, like whatever,
yeah,
that kind of starts seeping into the
yeah, they were never shy
formula.
about that. Yeah, it
No,
was
and
great,
that
man.
some of my favorite bands are that way. So anyway, well, I want to jump ahead. It's going to be kind of a big jump, but uh, and this is not any disrespect to the bands that you've played in, but I am curious. So you put out a solo record in 2010, right? So you've played in these bands, you've played off ramps and Fidyrich, and making noise all around the city and putting out records and playing the dive bars and doing the thing, right? But then the Jeremy Porter solo record, Party of One, comes out in 2010, and then kind of shortly after that, you put together the band, the first iteration of Jeremy Porter and the Tucos. But kind of what I'm curious about is, you still do play solo gigs. You released a follow up even, a couple of years ago called Dynamite Alley. And I'm curious, like, what your relationship is between your solo music and your solo persona versus playing with the band, and what kind of
Yeah,
makes you gravitate towards one or the other, when you're kind of working on new songs.
yeah. Well, that first record, I started working on that as the off ramps were kind of falling apart, and
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the best. That wasn't the best dissolving of a band that I've been a part
Okay.
of.
Okay.
It was rather unpleasant and disappointing, and I'm just as much to blame for that as anyone. And I knew, like, I I don't know if I was up for. I was fairly traumatized. I don't know if I was up for the battle of jumping right into a new band, even though we did with
Yeah.
Fidyrich. But I started that. So I did that solo record. I kind of threw that together pretty quickly because I wanted to play, and I had, like, coming off of Slugbug did a lot of touring. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not a lot, but a lot for me. And
And you guys opened for some like pretty significant
yeah,
bands
yeah,
during the time, like Sebadoh, I
Sebadoh
think. I
and
thought,
yeah,
yeah,
stuff like that, and a couple
yeah,
others.
yeah.
Um, but I had like PTSD coming out of Slugbug because that also ended poorly. And
Mm-hmm.
then with the off ramps, it took me several years to realize, I got to get on the road. My life is passing by, and we were mostly a regional band, and I'm like, I got to start doing this because pretty soon it's going to be too late. And then
Mm-hmm.
by the time I started to realize that, the band fell apart. But I was like, I had already kind of made up my mind that's what I wanted to do. So I did the solo record, and that was my vehicle for getting back out on the road. So I did a lot of
Okay.
touring off that. It's not great. It's not a great record. Maybe it has its moments, but it's the best I could do at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fidyrich got together, and it was it was a lot of fun with those guys, and I think we did some good stuff. But it was also very local, like not much
Right.
traveling, and um,
And that's you and Brian Rowley kind of
yeah,
sharing
it was
songwriting duties. Yeah.
half off ramps, half Tucos, yeah,
Right. Right.
or not off ramps, porch sleeper, yeah. So
Right. Right.
por- porch sleeper, drummer, singer, guitarist, off ramps, singer, guitarist, bass player, and that was fun. But it was like it wasn't busy enough for me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it was too slow paced, and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make it go faster because it just wasn't where everybody's head was at.
Right.
So that's kind of why I formed the Tucos, because that it just I needed more. I have to be busy. And then so then I did the Tucos for like whatever 10, 15, 16 years now, but I did like an EP in 2018, 2019, did some touring off that, a solo
Mm-hmm.
EP. And then I did that solo record in 2024, which kind of, like, I've had that in me for a while. And our drummer Gabriel, at the
Mm-hmm.
time. Like over time, he kind of became a little adverse to the more Americana leaning stuff,
Okay.
like
Okay.
he just kind of wanted to rock.
Right.
And that's cool. I mean, you like what you like, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't totally his thing over time. So I had like this stack of songs that needed a home.
Yep.
Um, and then I'd started the record shortly before the Tucos started their more recent record. And then we realized that we weren't going to be able to tour because guys had some personal stuff going on. We couldn't get
Mm-hmm.
out on the road. And I was like, well, I'm going to finish this record and I'm going to go tour then because it's almost done anyway. And I'm dying to get out there and I haven't done this in a while. So I finished that record with our friends from Lansing,
Yep.
Wild Honey Collective and those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And bunch of other people played on it from around the country. And yeah, I did like 80, 90 shows off that record.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was crazy. And by myself, almost all of them. And
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, that's kind of the long-winded answer of how the
No.
solo
No.
stuff
No.
comes around. But
I love
to
hearing about all that.
the up until recently, they were two very different things, and it was like, well, this is stuff that's going to work with the band, and this is stuff that isn't.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I don't write for one specific thing. I just write, and whatever comes out comes out.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't pretend to have the ability to control like when I formed the Off Ramps, I'm like, this is going to be an alt country band. I
Mm-hmm.
want to have an alt country. I want to be like Uncle
Yep.
Tupelo, and it was just straight like power pop rock. There was
Right.
almost none. And then I'm just like, it's not up to me. Whatever.
Sure.
The shit's going to fall from the sky, and I just got to
Yeah.
grab it.
It comes from wherever it comes from, and that's
Yeah, and
you
it
kind
is
of
what.
roll
And
with it. Yeah.
I'm just going to roll with it.
Yep.
So anyway, that's kind of how the two kept separate. But then last year, Gabriel's like, look, I kind of need to step back from playing a
Yeah.
bit, and we got Troy in on the drums,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things I talked to Troy and Jake about is getting back to your original question. I'm like, I really want to start blurring the lines between
Sure.
the solo stuff and the band stuff, and
Yeah.
if it was up to me, it would always be band. Like I would
Yeah.
rather do the band than myself, but I'm like, I want to learn some stuff off the solo record. I want to be able to play really quiet places if we need to, because not only can that be fun, but it also makes booking way, way easier if
Sure. Sure.
you can be more diverse in what you're outputting.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of calculated, but it was like, I want to blur that line, and that's kind of where we're at now. Is we're doing a lot of longer gigs. We're still way focused on the originals,
Mm-hmm.
a few covers here and there, but trying to blur that line where it's, and there may be another solo record down the road, but if I have my way, it would be a Tucos record that just has stuff that sounds like the solo stuff on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your name is part of the band name, so I think it
Yeah,
can
yeah.
somewhat be your way, right? But I do think also like
But you got
something
to
you
have
said that
guys who
kind
want
of
to do that too. You got to like,
right.
if
Right.
somebody wants to like rock out and do the punk stuff, which I love doing,
Yeah.
but it's
Sure.
like, look, this tune is really mellow,
Right.
and I always used to tell Gabe, I'm like, dude, we need to get in those alt country blogs. We're not going to do that unless we have at least a couple of these songs,
Right.
like
Right.
we're not
Right.
going to get any of that press if we don't have a couple Americana songs on there. So, all
For
right.
sure. Well, I think that like something you said that kind of like stuck out to me because I have these very same like internal kind of like arguments in my own brain sometimes where it's like, where is this going? Is this a solo thing? Is this for a band? Like, and I think like sometimes in the decision making process, at least if you're like empathetic to the fact that like there are other people involved that are like trying to support what you're doing, and depending on like how collaborative it really is, I guess is a factor too. But like, to say like, hey, this is like shit that you're not digging, we can dial that back. Like I want to make sure the people that play with me are enjoying this as well, and
Couldn't agree more.
we can compromise, right? And we can focus on, the sort of like style or approach that everybody kind of like, there's a homogeny around, right? But still kind of keeping some of that for yourself too, and having a solution for that if there
Exactly.
needs to be one. So I am
I mean,
curious though, like kind of on the, oh no, go ahead.
well,
Yeah.
further to what you're saying, for me, like, having a happy band is
Right.
it's the second most important thing to having a happy wife. It's like,
Agreed.
yeah. And, you know, I want these guys to be happy, and I would rather just rock out with a guy who doesn't want to play alt country than have him be unhappy and playing that stuff. So
Right. No, I hear that. Well, you've
yeah,
played with a lot of really great musicians over the years, and I know that you guys have, like you kind of mentioned, the Tucos have gone under like a slight like lineup shift recently.
I
So
lost you, Ryan. Hold on.
how do the people that you've played with or play with kind of currently impact the songs, the songwriting, the you know? Oh, can you hear me? Okay, I can still hear you.
You got me?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Yep, it's quiet, but I can hear
Jeremy.
you. Let me see if I can turn it up. I don't know what happened. It just all of a sudden
Now I
went
can't
quiet.
hear you. Oh, it's okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay.
We're back in
Weird.
business. I can't remember where I lost you about a couple minutes ago.
It's
Sorry.
it's the podcast gods don't want me to ask you any more questions apparently.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. But no, you're good. You're good. It's okay. Yeah, I was just kind of asking about like you've played with a lot of really great musicians, and I'm curious how like the people you've played with kind of impact the approach. I mean, you kind of already addressed it, but I think it's worth going into more. And I know that you've like recently like had a lineup shift in the
Early
Tucos.
trash bats. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
mentioned Gabe kind of
Yeah.
leaving the band, and finding a replacement drummer who I believe was from the Trash Brats, right?
Yeah.
Played
I mean,
okay,
it's
cool. But
definitely
like, yeah,
heavily
just kind of tell me
collaborative.
about like how the
I mean, it's
other
my
folks that you
name. I
collaborate with
I
kind of
do
like
most.
affect
I do
the sort of
pretty
end
much
product.
all of the business stuff. But we practice really hard,
Okay,
and we spend a lot of time in the basement bashing out songs, and we work on them together. Like I'll bring
right.
them in, and I'll often have them. Yeah,
Hmm.
always. Yeah, no, I always
Yeah.
demo them, and
Do you
we
demo beforehand, or are you like here's a riff?
sometimes I'll
Okay,
send
okay.
them. I have found that
And
it
do you
works
send
good
them to the
better
band
if
before
I
you guys
play
get
it for
together,
them in the
or is it like
basement
more for you to
by
kind of work through
myself, and
things
then
and
we
then
bash it out
feel
like three or four
confident?
times, and then I send it to them like that night or the next day. I'll send them the demo because I find that it gives
Okay.
them a little bit more of an open palette if they just hear it from
Hmm.
me rather than like a recording with a tambourine or
Okay.
something. Like I don't do like drum machine demos or anything like that. I just do like
Hmm.
one or two guitars, one or two vocals, and maybe a tambourine on the beat or something like that.
Right.
But
Right. Right. Right.
they're pretty minimal.
Okay.
But it's very collaborative, and sometimes a
Hmm.
song is like
Okay. Okay.
it ends up sounding almost just like my demo.
Sure. Sure.
And sometimes like we bash it out for a week where it's like one guy's like that chorus sucks, we need to fix that. And but it's yeah, yeah, we have a rule that there's no rules when we're working on stuff. You can say anything you want about any part.
Yeah.
Somebody
Move
doesn't
this
like the
around. Play this
vocals, they
more
should tell
times.
me.
Yeah.
If I want something
Cool.
different on the drums, I'm going to say something, and Gabe was always awesome with that.
Is that something you communicate to the guys? Like, did you state
Troy,
that kind of clearly? Like, for
Troy,
example, with Jake coming in as a somewhat newer, I mean, he's been playing with you for a while now, but Jake comes in. What's your new drummer's name? I'm so sorry, I forgot. Troy comes
Yeah.
in, right? Like obviously at different
I try to
stages,
be.
but are you
Yeah.
like,
I
all right,
mean,
first
I think
things
it's
first here,
transparency is
like
really important.
here are the rules of the road when you're playing with
And I
me.
also
Like you
think
can say whatever you
I
want. Like
think
do you like make
everybody
that
likes
very
it, you
transparent
know,
to them?
like it's like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, look, when we're working on stuff, like we work really hard, but
Yeah. Same.
it's not just me saying, play this, I'm like, let's see where it
Yeah.
goes. And if somebody wants something done different, we just say it. And it's not limited to me. Anybody can say anything. And then we're not going to get butthurt about it. We're
Right.
going to,
Right.
whatever ends up being best for the song, and yeah. And Gabe was awesome at like arrangements and stuff and coming up with like cool parts and
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And Jake's kind
Sure.
of
Yeah.
fallen into that role a little
And he
more now
writes,
that
he plays guitar
we
too.
haven't
So
been
like
with Gabe for a
he
while, where
understands
Jake will kind
how
of
to
lead
like kind of,
those, like,
navigate both
what
sides
else
of
can
it.
we do there? Would it be cool if we do this? And
Okay.
I've never, like, I learned a long time ago that my songs sound way better when other people get their hands on them and
Right.
help
Right.
me, like I really get off on that collaboration. For me, that's huge. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's always better. It's like, it's always better for that,
Well, they're going to
and,
do what you may not
yeah.
do, right? Like there's things that come naturally to the other players that may not to you. And yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that you're open in that way. And I think that like, yeah, it does
Right.
allow,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know, like back to like the comic book thing
Yep.
where it's like the person who inks the comic isn't always the person
Yeah,
who
and
like drew it
everybody's got different record
originally, right?
collections
And
and
they
different
can make it kind of come to
experiences and
life in
different
this way
parts
that,
they like, and it's
the
like,
other
yeah, it's
person
cool.
might
I
not have
really get off on
been
that
able to achieve.
creative
So,
part of it,
well,
and
let's jump.
I don't have any problem writing
Right.
stuff.
Exactly.
Quantity for
Right.
me is not an issue,
Hmm.
but I write a lot of stuff that I just throw away, and it's like I'll take about a third of it to the band, and
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
a half of that ends up on a record. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm. Sure. Sure. Well, let's talk about the new one. It's called Sell Their Souls. It's 12 songs that I think really shows off kind of like the sort of
yeah.
various dimensions of the band. You were kind of talking about blurring the lines earlier. Um, and there's some like legit like muscle on there, like like the propulsive kind of thing driving like Nutmeg and Fuss and some of those types of songs. But there's also some swagger kind of on it, like I mentioned in the intro. Like I'm
Yeah.
thinking of like Rats in the Suburbs or Rosencrantz that like kind of have more of like a griminess to it, or like there's like a little bit of a Stonesy riff in Rats in the Suburbs. I mean, it's like
Oh,
fast, but it's
nice.
there, and then you've got something like Muriel, which is like really pretty, and it reminds me honestly of like early Meat Puppets, like
Yeah.
so there's a lot of like variety on there, and so just I'm really curious. Like, tell me about like who plays on
Well,
it, where it
it
was
was
recorded,
recorded at
and
this place
more
called Black Sheep
specifically,
Audio in
kind of like
Novi, which was Steve
uh,
Presti's studio.
the inspiration
I
behind
don't know if you know
the new
Steve, but
Dash
he used to be
tunes.
in the Happy Accidents back in the '90s, and he he ran a Sound Camp studio up in Mount Macomb for a long time. He's got a music shop here in Plymouth. He's
Oh
got a
yeah,
guitar store
yeah,
here.
I loved them.
But yeah, he had this beautiful studio up in Novi, and he and I Slugbug recorded at Sound Camp, so he and I go back over 30 years. So
Cool.
we tracked most of it there, um, and then we finished up like overdubs and some guitar stuff in my basement because I have a studio in my basement, and then we mixed it there with Tim Padlin from Sponge from the Loft, and yeah, and he's had his hands on every one of our records. So we've either recorded with him and mixed with him, or just the
Sweet.
last two we just mixed with him. Um, but yeah, it took forever because I did that whole Dynamite Alley thing in the middle of it, which made what I was hoping was going to take about 8 months take 2.5 years. Um, but it
Hmm.
was crazy. Yeah. But it wasn't like we weren't just stagnant. Like I said, I did a million shows and all that. So it was like I was distracted. But
always does, right?
but it was one of those things, Ryan, like we were saying, like the songs just kind of happened, you know. It was like
Yeah.
Rats and
Yeah.
Strychnine and stuff like that. It was like those are like heavy songs. Like it's definitely the most rock record I've ever made. And it wasn't, I didn't go into it that way because I don't do that anymore. But it was just like, this is the batch of songs we have, you know, and it's still got that alt country moment on it, and it's still got the power pop, and it's, you know, it's got the Muriel thing, which is kind of different from everything else. And thanks.
Yeah.
It's about a, that's about a murder of a little French
I love
boy.
that song.
And
I think that
yeah, there's
song's
a
so great.
documentary
Yeah,
called
like when I was listening through
Who
like
Killed
that
Little
one,
Gregory,
you know,
and it's about
really stuck out to
this
me.
4 year old. They found this 4 year old
Okay.
French boy tied up in a river, dead, drowned or murdered or whatever. And then
Okay.
there was this fam. There was this. I don't know if it was like his sister or his cousin or something. But this girl named Muriel, who was 14 or
Mm-hmm.
15 at the time, she came forward with information about the murder, and they were onto the guy, and then she recanted her whole testimony, and the whole premise was like they didn't quite come out and say it, but the implication was that like her family didn't want to be involved. They didn't want to get her involved. They didn't, and this was like blowing up in the press over there. And there's a Netflix documentary on it. It's really interesting. But that's, yeah, if you like that song, I mean, that's, it'll make a lot more sense if you watch the movie. But it works on its own without that. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll have to check it out. Okay, cool. Is that something you feel like you try to do where you kind of like take, you know, like story type approaches where, you know, I feel like that's something I struggle with as a songwriter, quite honestly, is like I'm way more apt to write about like either an
Yeah.
observance on like something that's like personally affecting me, or, you know, maybe it's more of a political like thing, but like it still like comes
Yeah.
back around to affecting me personally versus like, oh, I read a book or I saw a movie. And it's not that to
I,
say that I haven't done that, but like it isn't
I
my first
almost
like
never
instinct to
take
do those types
something
of songs. So I'm
that
wondering, like, for you, is
specific
that something
and
that
write a
you
song about it. Like that's a,
do a lot,
I
or
can't
something you're
think of another
trying, you
song
know, to
I've
kind of
written
like,
that's about something that specific. But as
right.
as I've matured, I guess if you want to say it, as a songwriter, I have tried to get more into storytelling and character studies. You know, like I think a lot of the stuff on this record is, it's a lot of character studies, like Fuss, you know, Real McCoy,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. It's a lot. It's about Rosencrantz. It's about
Cool.
like this person and what is this person going through. But people, I used to be a lot more sort of abstract, kind of coming from like that Bob Mould kind of place where like the song's kind of not about anything, but it's kind of about everything. You know what I mean? And it's kind of maybe kind of an early emo kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. Yeah, I did that for a long
Right.
time. You know, where
Right.
it's like, you know, that sort of abstract inner personal
You
politics
just
type of
need a little
thing. But
eyeliner and you'll be set.
as I've gotten older and as I've played so many more shows, I've really noticed that the more story based songs, and the songs where you really kind of put yourself out there more on a put yourself out there more on a less abstract level, really connect with people a lot more. You know, like and then I get off on that. So that's kind of where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and there's no
Yeah.
rules.
And
So
you can
like
have sort of like the
the whole,
backstory that you
like
tell
A, it
before you
doesn't have
play,
to be true,
and some of that
you
stuff
know.
kind of gets
B,
people
it
to
could
have
be
more of an
from somebody
emotional
else, but you're
connection
still
to
singing
the
it from your
music, which
perspective, you know. It can change the case of the protagonist or whatever. So there's no rules. Like, you know, I don't eh, you know, I'm not going to let the truth get in the way of a good story,
right.
you know. If it makes if it makes a better for a better song, you know. I'm not above anything that'll make for a better song, and I'm not that married to my
That's
lyrics
the pull
where I
quote
can't
right
figure it
there.
out, and I'm
Yeah,
really
for
I
sure, for
really
sure.
obsessed about the economy of an arrangement. Like that's probably my favorite part of the process is
Yeah,
getting a
yeah.
4.5 minute song down to 2 minutes 55 seconds and just leave
Mm-hmm.
nothing on the table. Like not a wait. It's
Mm-hmm.
like
Trim the
it's like
fat,
the movie
get the
Jaws.
things
Not
settling right.
one
Yeah.
wasted moment in that movie. I like that in
Yep.
a song where it's like there's nothing frivolous happening
Yeah.
in there, and
Yeah.
you know, so I can tell with your songs. Yeah, I mean, you're a
Right.
fantastic
Totally.
songwriter, and especially that last time I saw you, it was just like I'm like,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah. I
some work went into
subscribe
these
to the same
arrangements.
approach
This
as
is
you
some tight shit,
earlier.
and it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Well,
it
thanks.
it really shows, and the more you do that, the more you start to see when you're listening to other music,
Well,
like
appreciate it.
I
Appreciate it.
would have, I probably would have cut that second chorus out. you know, yeah,
Right. Right. Well, I think it comes with age too, where you're just like, look, like time is,
yep,
like slipping away every day, and to approach these things in an economic way, whether it's playing a short set or playing short songs, or
well, yeah,
I
and it,
think
it
you can
connects
get
with
more
people
out there,
better. They don't
and
get bored,
it
especially
allows you to
nowadays
kind
when
of,
people like it's
yeah,
impossible
not
getting
like,
people to
I
shows,
think bore
and it's
people with
impossible getting people to
what you're
listen to
trying to
anything
do,
for
and
more than
keeps them
30
engaged,
seconds. And
yeah.
if you can get a huge hook in there that's going to make them hang on for 2.5 minutes and then get out before they get bored, I mean, that's nowadays that's a pretty
For
good
sure.
feat, if you can do that.
Yeah.
How depressing is
Right.
that?
In the age of where you can go on your Bandcamp and see how long people listened
Sure.
to your music and your records, like it's extremely depressing. Well, let's transition a little bit to, we're kind of like getting towards the end here, but I'm going to kind of like try to encapsulate this question. It's a multi-part question, but your touring is relentless, and I
No, I am
mentioned that
not.
already. Like, especially for somebody who's, I mean, like, I'm not telling any tales out of school. Like, you're not like a young man anymore in terms of like the rock game, right? So you're out there touring, but you also do these other things. You've got the Rock and Roll Restrooms book. You write, you do the Broad blog, you write for Pencil Storm, and it all kind of feels like part of this like Jeremy Porter experience to me, where everything is sort of an extension of the other things, the writing, the road blog, the photos of the bathrooms, being out on the road and like
Yeah.
telling these tales of like, what you ate, and if you, went to the record store, and what was on the, the uh, van stereo, for the day. And it's almost like kind of like this lore kind of thing, whether it's intentional or not, but it definitely like adds to the appeal and the allure, I think, of you as an artist, because it isn't just like, here's my songs and interpret them the way you want, and I might hit your city and whatever. Like, you're a storyteller, you're a documentarian, you're
It can be
peeling
humbling.
back maybe the
Yeah.
veil and showing people like the real kind of like parts of doing what you're doing, which is not easy, right? So I'm just curious, like, where does that all come from? Very much so. Where does it all come from? What is the sort of
Right.
like inspiration or just
Well,
like
it's a
motivation
really good
behind like
question, and I'm
all
certainly
these
not
sort
a
of like,
master of
I don't
it.
want to
I
call them
think
extras because it
sometimes
all
people
feels
have
like
a
part
tendency
of
to do
one
too
thing,
much
but like, where
or
does
to
that all
appear
like
that they're
fit
trying
in
too
for you
hard.
as
And I think sometimes I appear that way, like I'm trying too hard. But it's just
Mhm.
as I get older,
Right.
and you're absolutely right. I'm on that other side. I'm on the downslide, but it's like I care. I guess I care less about what people think as long as it's connecting with other people. Like
Hmm.
the Rock and Roll Restrooms book. I mean, I did that 12 years ago, and I'm casually looking for a publicist, but it's just I don't have the energy to really shop it. I'm just kind of
Hmm.
hoping something falls in my lap. It's just a prototype that I did. It was fun. It's cool. I sell them at shows.
Hmm.
People buy them, It's great, but I would really like to do a big book. Like
Yeah.
I've got probably 800 photos, from different bathrooms and bars we played at. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's supposed to be. Yeah, I mean but it
Yeah.
also,
Yeah. I see
back to your
them,
point,
when you
it's
post for,
also
when you post
calculated
about
because
shows
it's
and stuff.
also
And I
that
feel like it's
last
like a
kind of,
window into your
hey,
world,
the
right?
show is
Like,
on, get here
yeah. Yeah.
now, because I take them right before we play, and it's like at sound check or load in or whatever, and I'm like, okay, doors are opening in 20 minutes, get here now. So it's that last kind of
Hmm.
opportunity to get something different out there,
Right.
which the road blog is that too, where it's like, I mean, not
Hmm.
only not only do I enjoy doing it, and I
Yeah.
do think it
Yeah.
gives people a look into the dive
Hmm.
bar circuit, which I think is not what people think it is. It's like, I mean, it's a lot of downtime, and in a lot of ways, it's not great. And you hope the good stuff makes up for the bad stuff. But
Sure.
I
Sure.
try to not sugarcoat it. It is not, yeah. But I try to not sugarcoat it. Like if the show sucks, or
Right.
if something
It
bad
isn't
happens, I
glamorous
do
in the
my
way
best
that
to not
people
make
who
it all
have
like
never done
roses,
this think it might be.
but
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, I think like,
yeah,
to use like a lame word, not even like it's a lame word, but just maybe an overused word, like it feels very authentic to you to be this kind of like,
yeah.
you know, um, personality, or just like putting the time and the care into the documentation of the experience, because I
Hookers
do
and
think people get
drugs,
like
and it's
sort
like,
of a
it's
false
not
impression of
exactly what it's like.
touring, or it's like all fun and you're just drinking and you're just
Right.
whatever, like there's no work care. Yeah, like,
Yeah,
right,
and
right. And it's like not like that for
exactly.
99, yeah,
But it's like, I mean, the only
99.9%
thing
of
I've ever
people
been
doing
good at
this
is
don't.
writing. I mean,
That's
I
not
was
a
horrible
reality
at
in any way,
math, and I was
shape, or
horrible at
form.
anything I
It's
had to
eating Taco
memorize.
Bell and
But
trying to
I
just get
could
to the
fake
next
my
show.
way through any paper.
Well,
I could
so
write a term paper the day before it was due and get an A on it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
me
So
too, bro.
that all comes really natural, and it's all just,
Yeah.
and the pencil storm thing's just an extension of that. I
I,
mean, I met
I I
Colin
do know, what
I
you mean,
played on
because
a
I did
Watershed
that
record,
many times.
met Colin, came on board, and now I'm one of the co-editors. So it's
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
and it's,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, it
Yeah, that
does
rules, man. Well, it keeps your brain sharp too, right? Like it makes you like have to, want to pay attention to new music. It sort of like flexes that muscle, and
probably,
so that some of
yeah,
that stuff doesn't atrophy. And I'm sure it like I mean, it has to like
yeah,
seep into your songwriting too, right? The things that you see out on the road, or even just like, again, like the muscle you're flexing of like, I'm
absolutely,
writing,
yeah.
I'm
And it's a
purging
different,
these
it
like
puts me
things
in
that
front
live
of a
in my
different
head. And
audience too, and it and
at the
and
very
and I'm
least,
not going to lie,
like
but
I
it
said, it
helps the
kind of like
band.
allows you to like
It's
continue to
like,
keep your brain on,
it's,
for
yeah,
lack of a better. Well, so right. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you. Is like a lot of the sort of the underlying like theme of this podcast is like, how do you cut through the
yeah,
noise? How do you get your
it is.
music out there, your
I
creations
don't
out
know if I have
there,
an answer.
when there's a million other
I
people
mean, if I
vying for
did,
the
we
same
would
eyeballs?
probably
And
be a hell of a
it
lot
sounds
more
like that's
successful
part
than
of
we
it,
are.
and
But it's,
um,
yeah,
I'm just, yeah.
well, commercially successful. Yeah, like I do consider myself successful, if
Well,
for no other
success is
reason,
like,
just that
I
I'm still
think,
doing it.
a
You know,
debatable
I mean, that to me,
concept,
like,
right?
that's success. It's
Right.
like,
Okay. Right.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Right. There are
yeah.
so
Or
many
they
people
golf.
who have
Yeah,
never
and it's
made
like,
anything in their
yeah,
life.
and I get that,
They get
and
up every day, they, brush their teeth, they go to their
yeah,
job, they come home, they eat, and they go to sleep,
it's not
and
lost
that's
on
it,
me. Yeah.
or yeah, right.
But I don't. Yeah, it's, how do you do
This
that?
is
How do you
forever,
break through that
like
noise?
your records
I
are
don't
forever,
know,
your
but
music is forever, and you
I
leave
just,
something
like you said, I
behind in
just
this really
try to be
magical
authentic.
way. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
care what people think. I don't want it to appear that I'm what did I say earlier? That Yeah, I don't want it to feel too calculated or too like anything like that.
Well, it doesn't
Hmm.
feel calculated to me. You know, I think, but
Yeah,
I think sort of by circumstance, it creates entry points, right? Like, oh, you might not have like listened to
right.
Jeremy's music, but you maybe read a road blog, and then you're like, oh, I should probably check this out. Or you know, stumble upon the, you
This
know,
is
maybe you're
yeah.
just in the bar,
And
you
that
know, that you're playing
happens.
that
Yeah,
night, and you walk up to the music or to the merch table, and you start flipping through the bathrooms
yeah,
book, and you're like, this
exactly.
guy's pretty. Like, that's a really interesting idea. Like, I was going to take off, but
Yeah,
this guy takes these photos and this is kind of interesting, and maybe I'll stick around and watch him play, you know. And I don't think those things are calculated, you
yeah.
know. It's more just like that's how people get into shit, you know. They need something to get to be their gateway, and it might not always be the music first, right? So anyways, I
Yeah,
respect
yeah.
it. I think it's awesome. I mean,
If
I'm
I had
not going to
time,
sit
I
here
would
and
do a
pretend I
podcast. I
am
can tell
doing
you
this
that.
podcast
Like I have
only
thought
to
about
talk
it,
to
you
people.
know,
Like,
but I'm
you know,
just like,
it reminds
God damn,
people
I
that I
have
exist too,
enough
you
on
know.
my
Hello,
plate.
everybody.
I don't have
But
that
yeah, so okay,
capacity.
well,
But
I want to,
yeah, I respect it, and
yeah,
I love it. I love your podcast. You know,
yeah,
I like Maddie's podcast up in Lansing. You know,
yeah,
he's getting some great people. I'm talking to him
yeah. Well,
later
there's
today.
enough
You know,
podcasts out there,
um,
but
but he and I go back a ways, and I will. And you
yeah,
know, I
hell
love
yeah,
podcasts,
Maddie
and
rules, man.
it's a great way
Oh
to
yeah, cool, awesome,
it's your pencil
awesome.
storm,
Well,
right?
tell him I said hi.
Your venue, man. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, conversation, man. It's all about just yeah, it's just about sharing ideas and you know talking to people, trying to do the same thing you know that I'm trying to do. But so part of again like I guess the underlying theme of the podcast is this you know like the name of it, right? You've probably never heard of me, you know, so it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I am always curious, and I do always ask this question, like,
sure.
what are some artists,
I don't know
musicians,
about
whatever, creatives that
people are
you are
sleeping
into that
on.
you
I
feel
mean, I've
like
got like
need more
friends
attention or that
who
people are kind of
we've
sleeping on that
played with who I
people should
really
check out?
like, and a couple examples of that might be a friend of mine took his own life back in June, but his name was Nate Presley. Yeah, and yeah, it
Yeah.
was unexpected, and but he had a band called Nate Presley and the Ghost of Jesse
Oh
Garin,
no.
and
Okay. I'm sorry to
Jesse
hear
Garin
that.
was Elvis's twin who died in the womb, and so it and Nate Presley actually has a familial lineage back to
Okay.
Elvis in a roundabout way, and but
Oh
he's
wow.
put out a
Okay. I
couple
didn't know that.
records he's out of Lexington, Kentucky that are really great, and I had the
Okay. I was
honor
going
of
to
playing
ask.
at
Yeah.
his memorial
Interesting.
show down there in July, and did a couple of his songs, and that was great. And there's a band out of Minneapolis called Sparrowhawk, and the only way I can
Oh wow. Okay.
describe
Okay.
them is Thin Lizzy meets the Replacements,
Okay.
and it's like bar rock with like Thin
Okay.
Lizzy riffs, and they're great. And we played with them in Iowa in the spring, and
Sign me up.
I've been listening to their records a lot because I'm a huge Thin Lizzy guy. But
Sweet. Cool.
yeah, I'll send you a link. And as far as like weird stuff,
Okay.
like I'm really into
Okay.
this genre of music
Sweet.
called yay yay,
Sparrowhawk. Awesome.
which
Okay.
is like French pop music from the
Please.
60s, and it's exactly or Pussycat is one of my favorites, and it's I think
Mm-hmm.
it's all girls, or it's certainly
Mm-hmm.
mostly
Yeah,
girls, but
like
it's
Francois
very
Sardi
very
and that
poppy,
kind of
and
yeah.
it's a lot of covers, and it's
Mm-hmm.
all in French,
Mm-hmm.
but it's in pretty regular rotation. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I love that. Yeah, I still listen to a lot of metal. You know, not a whole lot of new metal.
Yeah. I have a couple of those records in
But
my
I like
collection.
Hailstorms,
Cool.
a
I love
newer
that.
metal
Yeah.
band that I like. But I still listen to
Awesome.
a lot of classic metal and classic
Okay.
rock. Um, you know, so it's diverse. Yeah, it's diverse. You know,
Okay.
I'm not going to be one of those guys. I listen to everything because I don't. But I do listen to a lot of like
Awesome, man.
from the poppiest pop to the
Yeah.
heaviest heavy
Which I
metal.
think is
You
so
know,
important. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's important. I was talking to Mo Troper. I don't know if you know Mo, but like, he was on my last
right?
episode, and we kind of had a conversation around like if you make a certain kind of music, but don't like allow other genres and other kind of eras and styles to like seep into your like song into your brain, like
Totally. Yeah.
eventually you're going to run out of ideas. Like it's just, you
It
can't
happens to a
write,
lot of bands where
it's
it's
like
like, sounds like your
there's
last
some
two
power pop
records,
artists that just
and
kind of
I definitely,
recycle the
but that will
same old
seep
shit.
in.
And it's just
Like
like,
you
ugh,
can
like
tell on
go listen
Sell
to
Their
something
Souls
else,
that
man.
I've been listening to
Yeah.
some metal. you know,
Yeah.
like it's not a metal record, but if you listen, you can hear some Aerosmith in there. You can hear some stuff in there. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
I can tell.
Uh-oh.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Cool, man. Well, last question for you. So you're in an elevator, the doors are closing. I
Oh
know this is like a
Jesus.
cliche question, but like
Um.
you got to tell a stranger why
Well,
Jeremy Porter's music is worth
I
listening
would
to, why they
probably
should
push
care.
the hook in the lyrics.
What
Like
do you say to them?
for me, the hook always comes first. Like everything is built around the hook, and I just be like, man, if you listen to this song 3 times, you'll be singing it for a week. And
Okay.
that's like my wife. Like she'll complain, like I don't like that song, and then like 2 days later, she's in the
Yeah.
kitchen like singing it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I got you. I
Oh yeah.
got you. You. She's like, So I would, yeah. For me, it's always like
She's
you'll
humming
be
it.
singing
Yeah.
along because it
Yeah.
happens,
Gotcha.
and for
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
it's the melody always comes first. It's the most
Yeah.
important thing, and it's more important than the beat. It's more important than the lyrics for me, so that's probably what I'd be like, it'll be like a hook. It's like it's
Yeah.
going to remind you of your favorite songs, but you won't exactly be able to
Mm-hmm.
say which one.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate this. It's been a lot of fun.
Sure. Hell yeah. Love that. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Uh, Yeah, yeah, yeah. If
it's,
to
it's
everybody
rather
listening,
exhaustive.
go to jeremyportermusic.com. It's like uh, a tree where you can branch off into all of Jeremy's projects. Yeah.
What the fuck?
You
Oh
can
my
also go to
god, it's been a nightmare.
jeremyporter.bandcamp.com to listen to some records. It's
Yeah.
on all the streaming and all that stuff too. I know the new record's still making its way onto some of the streaming platforms, but Bandcamp is always a great place to check out music. And then, of course, there's social media. I'll just throw the Instagram out there. It's Jeremy Porter
Yeah,
Music,
I'm sure we'll
just
run into each
all
other
one
before too long.
word.
So it's always a
But
pleasure
yeah, thank
watching you
you so
work, and
much
I
for
always
being on the podcast,
try to
Jeremy.
get out
I
whenever
had
I
a
can.
great time
So
talking to you, and I
yeah,
will see you soon, I hope.
that has to happen.
Let's do
It's
it.
overdue. All right, thanks, Ryan. See ya. Bye.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we'll maybe cross paths, do a gig at some point soon. So, yeah, love it, man. All right. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you. Yep. Bye.